Welcome to the Marketing Mastermind, a podcast designed to elevate your entrepreneurial mindset and help you take your business to the next level through digital marketing. Join your host, agency owner Hilary Russell, as she interviews experts from around the world, dives into business success secrets, and gives tactical mindset training to help you elevate all areas of your life and business. Ready? Let's dive into another Marketing Mastermind episode.
All right, welcome everyone to another episode. In this week's episode, we've got a really cool conversation topic that I know a lot of you are, trying to leverage within your own businesses. And I'm sure you can tell from the title of this episode, right, that there are a lot of unique ways that you can market and get your business out there when it comes to digital marketing. So the guest that I have with us here today is Brad Gledhill, and Brad is the owner of a company that he created based on a hobby turned into a business. So Brad, I'm going to give you the floor for a bit here. Tell us a little bit about your company.
Sure. So basically, I'm in the firearms industry. I am licensed to build. I'm a licensed manufacturer. So I'm licensed to buy, sell, build, all of that stuff when it comes to the gun world. But I'm more along the lines of a body shop for guns. We specialize in customization of all types of firearms, and that's stippling, Cerakote. Cerakote would be the paint jobs on the guns, right? The camouflage, that kind of stuff. The stippling is added grip texture to polymer pistols, things along that line or along those lines, and yeah, it literally started as just a passion and a hobby, and a tax write-off for my oil field business that I'm doing, and it quickly turned into a full-time gig. So
That's cool.
it was never the intentions, but that's how it ended up.
That's cool. So I'm curious how, I grew up around firearms. My dad was really big into hunting. And so we had tons of firearms in our house at all times.
Yeah.
But I'm curious, this is quite a bit more unique when it comes to, like you said, the body work of firearms. How did you get into that?
Honestly, I seen some on Facebook, and I was like, wow, that's pretty cool looking. So I started looking into it, and I started seeing some of the prices that guys were charging, and I was just blown away. And I'm kind of cheap, so I'm like, there's no way I'm going to do it myself, because I do have a bit of an art background. I took a bunch of art classes in school and even some college art classes in high school. And so I decided that I was going to gear up and give it a shot, and the first one turned out really well. It was really simple, along those lines. Like I very basic, decided that I'm just going to give it a go, and it worked out. But then I ended up ruining 90% of my gun collection because I obviously had no clue what I was doing, right? But I had to sacrifice those in order to get better, is what it boiled down to, without being an actual FFL holder, a federal firearms license holder. You cannot legally work on anybody else's firearms, and that's cleaning, painting, no matter what it is. If it's a business, if it's done as a quote unquote business or a business operation, you have to be licensed to do it. So I ruined all of my stuff until I decided that I could make a go at actually starting a business.
Right. Man, that's quite a bit of trial and error. That's quite a bit on the line.
It was. Yeah, it was
try things out.
Yeah, it was a full-time job, and then 40 hours a week sitting in my garage, just trying to learn, but sometimes that's what it takes. You've got to have that grind and that will to better yourself and whatever's going on, or else it's not going to pan out.
Yeah, absolutely. So Brad, let's fast forward to today. So the name of your company is Gledhill Customs. Tell us a little bit about the company, because you've built a massive audience and following through social media and really have, learned the right way to get your brand out there.
Right. So It all started with Facebook, and that's where I have most of my clientele comes from Facebook. But unbeknownst to me, right, I was just doing what I thought I should be doing, and I was kind of posting in various groups pictures of my work. It was as I was up and coming, and just trying to show off what I was proud of at the time, which looking back was horrible, just starting. But
Sure.
I actually ended up getting the attention of a famous YouTuber at the time who was in the 2A world. And he ended up messaging me and said, "Hey, that's project that you're working on is really cool. I would like to use it on my channel as like my thumbnail or whatever to help promote my next video." And I'm like, "Oh, okay, cool. And so he ended up using it, and that just sparked everything. We hit the ground running, and most of the business, like I said, does come from Facebook, which is silly because Facebook is anti-guns, Instagram is anti-guns, YouTube is anti-gun. It just about every platform. I'm banned from Venmo, and I'm banned from PayPal, and just because I paint guns for a living and play with guns. But it said it was all built off of the social media platform, which is tricky to do. But once you kind of get it figured out, I mean, you've got the whole world at your fingertips.
Yeah. Yeah, that's powerful. I'm curious, when you were first getting started, was it something, and I think you kind of answered this a little bit, but let's maybe expand on it. Was it something that at any point you were like, okay, this is an intentional action that I'm going to try to build some, you know, audience or some type of traffic here? Or was it purely just, I'm just going to post about what I enjoy?
So it started off as just posting about what I enjoyed,
Mhm.
and just kind of showing off, hey, look what I've done. And then it finally, I had enough support from various people throughout the community on social media that said, man, you should make a go at this. You should really try and expand and make a business. And doing the oil and gas industry stuff that I have done for the last 12 years, I was like, man, there's no way. It's not going to pay my bills. It's not going to even come remotely close to replacing an income. But it could be a tax write-off, right? So then I got thinking, like, man, okay, I spend a lot of money on firearms and firearm accessories, so I might as well use it to my advantage. And so at that point, I was getting comfortable enough with my skills that I thought, maybe I can make a go at this. So I already had an LLC and all that set up for the oil field business, but I ended up doing a DBA for Gledhill Customs, and started all of the proper licensing and stuff that's required. And like, okay, I guess we'll see what happens. Well, finally ended up getting the licensing squared away, and at that point, I was a legitimate business, a second business. And so, fast forward about 2 months after my licensing came, the oil project that I was working on, where there was 5 years of guaranteed work, shut down. And it was March of 2020 with COVID and all of that stuff, and had enough money set aside that I wasn't worried about finding a job, right away. And I mean, I always had other stuff that I could fall back on if needed. But I'm like, well, I guess it's time to really buckle down and make a go at this and see what happens. And that's when I literally hit the ground running. I spent all of my time and effort on advertising, not paid advertising because that's against Facebook policies for the gun stuff, but just spreading my work, spreading my name, showing everybody online like, hey, look, this is what we can do. And to be honest, it probably got pretty annoying for some people, me constantly chiming in and showing pictures of the projects that I had been working on. But what they don't understand is anytime you get a reaction on Facebook, whether it's a good comment, a bad comment, a like, a dislike, whatever it is, the system doesn't care. Those algorithms don't care. Those algorithms just keep getting boosted and boosted and boosted, right? And that's what you need to work in your favor, is you need the algorithms on your side. And the more people that are talking about you and the more interacting you do with those people, the more your name is out there, and the more anybody on the whatever platform it is can see you, and it gets overwhelming at times. You're working 50, 60, 70 hours a week, doing whatever your hustle is, and then you're spending an additional 4, 5, 6 hours a night online, constantly communicating back and forth with the communities, spreading the work, sharing the posts, doing all that stuff. And there's always somebody that wants to ask a question. Whether it's, how do I get into this? How do I sign up to get work done? And I had to finally just make a rule that 8 o'clock rolls around, my phone is shut off, because if not, I'm gonna wear myself out, which I did,
Yeah.
but just there's only so much you can do, but you have to set some boundaries so you know when enough is enough, and go to bed, start over again the next day.
Right. Yeah. Okay. I love that you're talking about this. So there's two things that I really want to dive into. The first is I'm curious, how often, and maybe you don't, I don't know, maybe you're like 1 in a million, but how often do you receive negative or hateful type of comments? How do you deal with that? And does it ever, is it ever something that you feel overwhelmed by, or do you have a great coping mechanism for, you know, letting that roll off, if you will?
Sure. So luckily I'm thick-skinned. Okay. I think that probably comes from the oil and gas industry. Now this far into the business, I don't get the hate that I did at first, right? First starting out, there were so many negative comments. For every good comment, there was a bad comment, because somebody's done that before, somebody has done it better, and they were right, but deep down, I know, look, I'm doing the best that I can. Whether you like it or not, it doesn't matter to me personally, because I just take it with a grain of salt. I don't know them from Adam. They don't know me. What they say, that let them talk. At the end of the day, if anything, it's just a boost in algorithms.
Yeah, I like
So
that.
yeah, but there can be some people. The internet's a horrible place. It's a blessing and a curse, right? Because on one hand, you've got literally the world at your fingertips, but at the other hand, there's some pretty bad people out there too, that are constantly, and a lot of it, I don't even know, to be honest, that a lot of the negativity is even actual people. I personally think that they're bots, that just come in, and doesn't matter what you say, and they'll just counter right back with something else negative, I mean, and they don't stop. It just goes back and forth, and I'll mess around with it for a while, and I'll play into it for a while, but then I just kind of block them and be like, all right, you're done. Thanks for that. But so, I
Yeah.
mean, you got to kind of be thick skinned. I mean, it can definitely take a toll on you if you're not comfortable with that kind of situation. There's a bit of a learning curve, to be able to just let it roll off your back and just move on. But take the good with the bad, because a lot of that stuff, it was just fuel to my fire. Like,
Right.
okay, you have a problem with that, I'm going to show you on the next one, watch, and I'll turn around and I'll improve that area. And then who has something else to say, because I'll just keep improving and improving and improving.
Yeah, I love that. I like the perspective too of like, hey, you know what? It feeds the algorithm. So it is what it
It
is,
does.
right?
Yeah, it
Yeah,
does.
I have the opportunity to work with a lot of entrepreneurs through a program that I've created through a company called Entre Institute. And we've had thousands of entrepreneurs come through, and that's probably one of the most common things that I hear, especially with those who are just starting out in their business, is they get a lot of hate, whether it's from social media or negative comments when they're posting and trying to get their business started, or even from outside of social media, from friends, family members, and whatnot.
Yeah.
So I think that's so important, and I love what you're saying here, Brad. And I mean, maybe speak to it on the external side too, because I mean, for myself, for my belief, it's it is difficult sometimes, but it's almost like you got to be tough skin, put the blinders on and focus on your vision and just keep moving towards that. Because at the end of the day, you're the one that's going to end up, after consistency, you're going to be the one with the success, not these,
It
people.
doesn't fall on anyone else's back.
Right.
It's your burden to carry.
Right.
And whether you succeed is on you. It's not on whoever's talking smack on Instagram or on Facebook or down the street, right? Their life, your life has nothing to do with them. But what you do with your life is on you,
Yeah.
and if you put in the work, you will succeed. That's all there is to it. I tell people it's progress, not perfection, right? Because I know I'm not perfect, but I try to progress. Even still, all these years later, I still am constantly trying to better myself, better my techniques, because if I start to get stagnant, it shows in my work, and as soon as if the quality of work starts falling off, so do the followers, so do the income. And when you're relying on that, you've got to look yourself in the mirror and say, okay, what do I need to change? Because I'm the one that's in control here.
Right. Yeah, that's powerful. On on the flip side of that, and the second piece that you talked about that I wanted to touch on a bit was the time management and really, being aware and kind of setting boundaries for yourself of saying, okay, I need to shut my phone off at 8 o'clock at night every single night. Otherwise, I'll just get sucked into this. So can you talk
Yep.
about that a little bit? And how did you come to how did you come to set some boundaries like that? What was there something drastic that happened, or was it just realizing this isn't sustainable?
So a little bit of both. My wife giving me the evil eye as it's 9 o'clock and I'm trying to answer questions in the beginning, because every interested person could lead to a sell. It's not a guaranteed sell until the work is here and the work is being done, and it took a toll on me as well as her because she's laying there having to deal with it, but I just noticed that I started to loathe when my phone would go off,
Mm.
and so I'm like, look, I've got to do something different here. And it just got to a point where, okay, bedtime is 8 o'clock. I will answer all of your questions after that, and there's so on the business suite, I think is what it's called on some Meta or Facebook or whatever. It shows you the engagements that you're getting. It shows you, it breaks it down 7 days, 14 days, I think, 28 days, something like that. It tells you whether you're being responsive enough on messages. And I use that tool because that's what it is. It's a tool, right? But I use that to make sure, okay, if my numbers start falling off, then I know, hey, I need to be more engaged. And even if it is, an extra hour during the workday, then I will kind of just plan around the projects that I have going. If the I guess is what really helped too is setting a dollar value goal per day. In the oil field, everything is a day rate. Okay. So it's X amount per day. And so I set my sights on a certain amount, and that could be one project. It could be three projects for that day, just depending on what is going on. So, depending on where I'm at during that budget that I'm trying to get into, I'll say, okay, I've got an extra half hour. I'll sit here and kind of play around, and the real tricky thing too is once the algorithms start to change, because every update on Facebook, they make changes. I mean, I'll go from having 500,000 people every 28 days come through my business page down to 60,000 in 28 days, which is still a ton of people, right? Like, I mean, that's a lot, but literally no fault of your own. It's just Facebook's made a new update and they've changed the algorithms. And so then you've got to get back into it and start grinding. And at that point, okay, maybe I do have to spend a few more hours online essentially just to try and get everything boosted back up.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. That's very true. I mean, when it comes to social media platforms, there's a lot that we can do in terms of being consistent, providing good content, that type of thing, engaging, right? But at the end of the day, the platform is owned by by the name of the platform. So it is a tricky game, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. So I'm curious a little bit more into that same topic. And honestly, Brad, I'm super intrigued by this as well, because the the probability or the possibility of someone just posting about their hobby and all of a sudden generating tons of interest and tons of traffic off of that is pretty slim, right? Especially in the world that we're living in, where everyone is posting about things that they enjoy. So
Yep.
what do you feel was maybe what finally helped you to direct that a bit more? And I know, I recognize you've got a Facebook business page, and I don't know if you were, running all of it from your Facebook business page from the beginning, but you definitely seem to have some type of system. So would you mind speaking to that a bit?
No, absolutely. It got to the point when I decided I was going to make a business out of it. I was tired of my personal feed becoming overwhelmed with stuff, and I'm sure all my friends and family were getting kind of sick of it too, right? So that's when I, excuse me, that's when I utilized the Facebook business suites and set up the actual business page. I did both Facebook and Instagram, YouTube, all of the social media platforms, right? And so I have kind of ever since the beginning ran directly from their their business platform. And it's good because it gives me two different places that I can post, right? So I go on and I create the post or whatever project I finish that day, and I'll put it into my business page. And then from that business page, I can go with my personal page and share it into all these other groups that the business isn't even a part of, but it's still under the business post, right? And so it's drawing more people in through my personal posting, but it's not done directly on my personal page, and it gives you two different sets of algorithms, I guess, to work off of, because I'm got mine going and then I've got the actual business page going. And that's, it kind of helps to have two of them, I guess. It's two is better than one when it comes to the number game. So, but yeah, just like I said, there's a fine line between spamming, because they have that written into their algorithms as well, right? If you're posting the same thing over and over and over again, you're going to become shadow banned. And that's a truth. I mean, that happens, and you can see it in the numbers if you're watching your business suite and your engagement posts and all of that. But so you don't want to spam the work out there, but at the same time you need to get it out there and you need to get people talking about it. And whether that's doing giveaways. I do a ton of charity events. Anytime we donate to our high school locally, and it's gift certificates for work to be done. So it's not costing anything but time, but it's such a huge draw for local places, high school. People. We've had some friends and family that have had illnesses that have needed some extra money, and we've been able to raise thousands of dollars for them. And the more charity you do, the more your name gets out there. And you've got to realize, I mean, it's more of a marathon, not an actual race. Like it's you need to it's slow and steady, and it's that way to the top but it's slow and steady. If you hit the ground running and you exert everything right out the gate and you don't have any more cards up your sleeves, you're done. You'll lose traction, and all the interest starts to fade away. But by helping the community, whether it's an online community or whether it's, someone locally, you're just getting your name out there. And the more people that recognize the business name, or, the personal names involved with the business, the better chance that they're going to remember, oh, hey, there's that guy that does this or that guy that does that, and it's turned to from just being a gun business into, I mean, I've painted plumbing parts for a guy's clawfoot tub. I did a mountain bike the other day for a guy locally. I mean, and it's the opportunities are endless once you get the ball rolling. you just have to keep it rolling, you know?
Yeah, yeah, that's super cool. Well, and I think one thing that you've really nailed down is leverage,
Yeah.
right? And I think that as an entrepreneur, that's something that you need to sharpen your skills with, because the ability to leverage, and what I mean by that is, having one input that has multiple outputs, right?
Right.
Doing like one post that you can post in multiple places or get your name out there in multiple areas just by one thing that you're doing on a daily basis. And I think that's brilliant.
Mm, absolutely. You know,
It,
and
oh,
so
go ahead.
sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. I was just going to say another thing that's huge too, and it seems like something so like common sense, right? But customer service. And you wouldn't believe the amount of people that say, I can't believe you're actually replying back to this, or that you're taking the time to let me know and send pictures of the work being done and this and that, because so and so did the same project or a similar project and I didn't hear from them. It just showed back up at my house. And you've really taken and made this experience great just by communicating. I mean, it is such a huge help. There's only so much you can do as far as posting and spreading that, but for every positive interaction you have with a customer or even a potential customer, they're going to turn around and they're going to start promoting you, and then so forth and so forth. And I've even had people, they've called it to ask for work to be done, or they've asked my opinion. Should I send it to you and have work done, or should I send it to so and so? And I flat out tell them it doesn't matter. They do great work. Like, just you have to be honest and tell people that, tell them the truth. Yeah, I would love to do it, but I'm not going to tell you that they do horrible work, or that by switching this around isn't going to solve your problem, because at the end of the day, like money's tight for a lot of people, and if I can help them by just giving some advice, that's what I'm going to do, because they're going to remember that, and then when they need it, they'll come back to me.
Right.
Customer service goes a long way, and it seems to almost be a thing of the past anymore.
Yeah, that is so true. That's so true. And it's funny because I mean, it's not even like doing something super extravagant. It's just being a
Yeah,
decent, communicative,
just
trustworthy human being.
just be a decent person. Yeah, exactly.
Right, right. There's a
Exactly.
quote that I don't even remember who it was, but it's basically says they're not going to remember the results, the product, the service, whatever it was that you're fulfilling on for them. They're going to remember how you made them feel. And that's
Yep.
what ultimately drives loyal clients, is remembering how you made them feel through the experience.
Absolutely. And to me, I would rather, like, I rarely raise my pricing and all of that throughout the years. I'm on actually the lower end. I get not yelled at, right? But all the other professional shops are like, you need to raise your prices, you need to do this, you need to do that. And I intentionally stayed on the lower end. I'm not undercutting everybody, but my pricing is priced for a reason. And I'm not trying to nickel and dime people. I would rather repeat customers come back to me over and over and over again than try to make an extra 10 or $20 off of one person. I mean, it just doesn't make sense. It makes more sense to have the return customers than it does to just constantly keep raising prices, have somebody come in once, be happy, but then go somewhere else because it's cheaper anyways.
Right.
I set the pricing that I thought was fair, for my time, and that I think is the right price that it should be charged. And that's where I've stayed throughout the years, because I honestly, I think it works out better. And like I said, the return customer base is huge. I mean, they're the ones that at the end of the day pay the bills, right? And if they're not coming back, then there's a problem. And it was either with the service that they got, or the price, or whatever. But
Right. Right. So, okay, so switching gears just a little bit, I want to understand it, and maybe provide some clarity here too. So up till the point of starting Gledhill Customs, your background experience was not so much in the entrepreneurial space, right?
no,
How did
no.
that how did that happen? And did you always maybe have an inkling or a feeling that you someday wanted to do something like this? Or was it all
Yeah.
just, yeah?
So a little bit of both, right? Like, working for somebody else, it pays the bills. But
Mhm.
at the end of the day, you're not the one in control. You're the one that's padding the pockets of the owner of the company,
Right.
you know. And I thought, like, man, one day I'd really like to. And I had tried one other time. I took a little break in the oil and gas industry, and I had tried a little business venture and it didn't work out, and I had the oil and gas to fall back to. So that's what I did, you know. But having that one failed attempt, it always stuck in the back of my mind that, man, I want to go out and do something and work for myself, be my own boss, set my own hours. You know, we've got 5 kids, and so working around their schedules can be a little hectic. And if you've got a normal 9 to 5, or in the oil field, if you're working 100 hours a week, like, it's hard to do that. You know, it's hard to be flexible like that. So I always knew that I wanted that freedom and all of the headaches that kind of come with that, you know. But I wasn't sure what it was going to be, what it was going to entail. I had always assumed it would be oil and gas related, which it was for a short period of time, for about a year before COVID, you know. And then it just happened. Like, this was never an intentional thing. It was just hey, that's cool. Like, and then maybe I can make a business out of it. Now it's a full-time career. You know, it's weird how it works, but when it was time, it all just fell into place. You
Yeah.
know, like, I feel like the other venture, everything was kind of forced and spur of the moment, and there was no proper planning or nothing. It was just, here we go, and it obviously didn't work out, right? But this one, I was able to get everything up and running. I mean, I kind of had a business plan in mind, and a business actually started when I was forced into being full time with it, or at least hoping that it would work out full time, you know. And then just hard work is what kept it there, right?
Yeah, that's cool. That's really cool. And to see what it's grown into now, that is phenomenal within just a few short years, even. That's
Yeah.
incredible. So,
Yeah.
wrapping up here, and this has been such a cool conversation to hear, what your journey has been and what has really, attributed to the pieces that have allowed you to be so successful. If you could go back, what advice would you give yourself when you were first starting out?
Don't be scared.
Hmm.
Take the leap, right? Because you're going to miss 100% of the time if you don't take the shot, right? If you don't actually try, you're not going to succeed. There's always, you know, a lot of people get comfortable. They get that 9 to 5, and you know, their bills are paid. They're not getting ahead, but they're not getting behind. And then they're just comfortable, and that's where they want to ride, and that's fine. You know, struggling or thinking, hey, you know, how am I going to pay for groceries this week, or how are we going to keep the lights on this week? It isn't for everybody. But at the same time, that feeling, in the long run, it goes away, and it gets to where it's easier and easier and easier. But if you're afraid to actually take the leap, you're just going to stay stuck. You're going to stay stagnant, you know.
Yeah.
And it's worth it. So
Yeah, that's cool. The last question that I have for you here is, and you talked about this just a little bit, but, knowing when to trust yourself versus to pivot. And you mentioned, the first company that you tried to start and get rolling with, it just felt forced. It didn't feel like this, right? So do you have
right.
any advice for entrepreneurs that are maybe having that question in their minds of, well, is this the wrong thing for me to do, or have I just not been consistent enough?
So at the end of the day, it comes down to, you know, you feel it in your gut, right? Like, the whole gun thing has always been so passionate to me, but I never once thought, like, man, I could make a business out of something, you know. And the other side, it was something that I had done for years and years as a job prior, and I enjoyed it, but the drive wasn't there, that passion wasn't there. So having that extra fire from, you know, man, this is, I've always intrigued, I've always wanted to play with guns and work with guns, you know. Having that extra push really helped out, and it helped with the drive to continue learning and to continue growing. Whereas with the other one, I mean, it was it was pretty noticeable pretty on that it wasn't a good fit, but I don't like failing. And so I kept pushing through when I should have just, like you said, pivoted right out the gate, you know. I mean, it's those signs are there. You just have to kind of watch for them. And Lord works in mysterious ways, right? And you'll see it coming, or you'll have that feeling of like, man, something's off. But you need to learn to just trust that gut instinct, because if there's a will, there's a way. But at the same time too, it needs to be a business, and not a charity, and not costing you money, and putting you in debt or something, digging a hole that you're not going to be able to get out of, right?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. That's cool. It's funny that you say that, because that's a question that I, bring up and ask with a lot of successful business owners. And it's funny because I'd say 9 times out of 10, that's the answer, is you got to trust your gut. Right. We know ourselves better than anyone else out there. And we know what our passions and our desires and, the things that we're really driven to achieve are. So trust yourself.
Absolutely. And that's if you're used to somebody else calling the shots and telling you what you have to do all the time, trusting yourself it's tricky if you're not comfortable with that. If you're not used to doing so, then it might take a little extra work, but gosh, it's worth it. If you can get it and just do it, even though it might be scary at first, it'll be worth it in the long run. It'll pay off.
That's cool. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that, Brad. Okay. Wrapping up here, can you please tell everyone how they can find you on social media and where they could find you if they are interested in checking out Gledhill Customs?
Yeah, absolutely. So Gledhill Customs on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. I'm actually monetized now on YouTube.
Nice.
It's been a long time coming. Being in the gun world, they're super anti-gun. So I'm making like a whole $1 a day right now, but
That's awesome.
yeah, it's a start, right? But so just about any platform you want, we're there, whether we're active or not. Facebook's about the best place. Instagram's number 2, or you can go to www.gledhillcustoms.com and see a list of kind of what we have to offer and the pricing for all of it. So
very cool. Well, thank you so much, Brad. This was a super fun conversation. I appreciate
absolutely. Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity.
Absolutely.
Thank you for joining us for another episode of the Marketing Mastermind podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please like, follow, rate our show, and share with your friends on social media. You can also join our community by visiting us online at marketingmastermindpodcast.com. Thanks for joining us, and we'll catch you on the next episode.